So we are here in the cupping room at World Cup Coffee and Tea for a reason. Because this composition you have written for the Portland Jazz Composers Ensemble performance coming up, and I understand, as you mentioned to me, it is about coffee.
It is about coffee, so the whole concert is themed around, I think they're calling it a taste of our city. So sort of culinary and drink-oriented markers of Portland and things that Portland is known for as a food and drink city. So I think
what have you done with coffee? And what have you done with coffee? What have you done with it?
What have I done with it?
What have you done with it?
I've drunk a lot of it.
Yeah.
I think I chose coffee because I was thinking about, well, the piece is called The Coffee Ceremony, and it's named after a Ethiopian tradition that I learned about from a project that my daughter did for school.
Wow.
Yeah, which is all about, I don't really know that much about the tradition, but it's all about like the sort of social ritual of coffee. And it's kind of very, like there are very specific steps involved to making it and to sharing it. And so I've been drinking coffee probably for about, since my mid-20s, but I really didn't sort of obsess about it till I came to Portland.
Of course not.
So in a way, like that title helped me kind of express how the piece is really just about the ritual of coffee drinking, and not only like in a public place like this, but just sort of my own ritual every morning, and putting it together and enjoying it before the day actually gets started. So the piece is broken up into 3 sections. There's the grind, the brew, and the drink. It's not necessarily program music where each stage in the process is described through music, but it's just sort of an impression of, I guess, the mindset I have in the morning when making coffee.
So it's about the making and the drinking, because much of your music could be described as caffeinated.
Yeah, a little hyper, I think, in spots.
I say that in a good way.
No, I know. Yeah. I know. It starts off. The piece definitely starts off. That first section, the grind, is the most painful part, because that's the part when you haven't really sort of had the full effect of the substance yet, and so it doesn't start off with that peppiness, but as it comes through with the brewing part, and then the drink section is actually, it's a slower tempo.
Yeah.
But it's a very blissful. It's meant to be like very peaceful and very sort of like serene and like, yes, this is what I needed. Now I'm ready for whatever else the day is going to throw at me. So, yeah.
What's the instrumentation for this performance?
It's really unusual.
Oh, really? I wouldn't think that of you.
Well, it wasn't my choice, actually. I mean,
really?
they had their instrumentation set, so one of the requirements.
Oh, so you had to write around that?
Yeah. Everybody did. We're working with the same ensemble for all of the pieces, and the instrumentation for this is. I usually really, one of the challenges for me was that I usually write very like. I love like fat bass sounds. I love like a lot of low end, and we didn't have a bass player for this instrumentation. Ryan graciously stepped in to play. He has a bass 6, one of the Fender bass 6, which is not a true bass, but it has a bass range sound.
Yeah.
And so that's going to cover for bass sound, but everything else is sort of like kind of higher range instruments. So we're using organ, drums, bass. That's the rhythm section. Then we've got 4 horns. I'm using alto and soprano, and then French horn and trumpet.
That's a smaller group than I'm used to from you.
It's a little bit smaller than what I'm right now, I mean, the industrial jazz group has gone through many different configurations too, but right now my most regular one is a 10-piece. So this is a little bit smaller than that, but still bigger than what I started with, which was a quintet many years ago.
Yeah, yeah. I remember a couple of gigs at Mississippi Pizza where the stage wasn't big enough.
Yeah, in the past we've gotten as big as 15 or 16 people.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's fun, but I really, actually, now that I'm in my 40s, I sort of feel like I've settled into I've tried pretty much everything as far as what arrangement the band can be, and I think I'm really happy with 10 pieces right now. It seems to be a nice happy medium between the obscenely large and then too small to really be bombastic.
You know, one thing I've always noticed about your ensembles is that at the end of a tune or at the end of a gig, everybody in the band is smiling. It's really true. You can't say that about hardly anybody else.
Oh, I really appreciate that. I mean, that's my goal.
Are they glad it's over? Because it was really so hard to. I don't think that's why.
Maybe
I think they just had a lot of.
Yeah, I mean,
they just had a lot of fun.
I hope so. I mean, I've always been interested from the beginning in the role of humor in music, whether it was explicitly expressed through lyrics or whether it was just something in the way that the melodies lie or some aspect of noise used at an unexpected moment.
Yes. I'll never forget one performance with Portland Jazz Composers Ensemble at the old church, where during your piece you had various members of the orchestra get up and sit down, and it had nothing to do with whether they were playing or not.
Yeah. Well, I've always been fascinated by just like the physical presence of a band on the stage.
Yeah.
There seems to be certain like expectations about how you're supposed to. A lot of it is training through schools, I guess, but there's a lot of expectations about how you're supposed to present yourself.
Yeah.
So we've done different things over the years to try to complicate people's expectations, whether it was wearing funny hats or just moving in unexpected ways.
That was a great joke. It was a great joke. Okay, you have written a book called Decomposition, a Music Manifesto. A manifesto! A manifesto!
I have to say, I say this all the time when I talk about the book, but the word manifesto was an editorial choice. It wasn't. I had originally just called it a philosophy of music, but when it went through the editorial process, that was one of the things that was
Das Musikal.
I think they wanted to piss people off. So they figured, that would bring some engagement.
If you read it, will you get pissed off?
It depends on what your expectations are, I guess. I mean, it is definitely, there's a polemic there. There's an argument there, and not everybody is going to agree with it.
What is it basically?
Since I'm a composer, I think about composition all the time. And, I've always felt that there really is no such thing as a composer in the traditional sense of just one person putting dots on a page and saying, here's a piece to play, and this is my piece. I've always felt involved in a kind of a broader creative experience, and I feel like all my pieces are a direct result of my interactions with the performers who play them. So it's basically an argument about collaboration.
I don't know if you wrote the notes inside it. A bracing, revisionary, and provocative inquiry into music.
Yeah, I did not write those.
Wow.
Actually.
Well, you could have. I mean, that's pretty good.
I hope it is all those things, but that's editorial.
And the title of the book?
Decomposition.
Yeah.
You mean where does it come from? So it's just an idea, this argument that creativity is collaborative, and that there is really no, like when you think about music, there is no one thing that it is. It is really kind of a shared experience. So decomposition is kind of like the flip side of the traditional kind of like 19th century idea of what
But there's a
composition is.
Beethoven joke on the back here.
There is a Beethoven joke. It's a silly kind of riff on the whole idea about what Beethoven is doing nowadays, decomposing. But the book is about much more than that, John.
All right. Well, have a great performance.
Thank you so much.
And
I
thanks a
appreciate
lot.
the time to talk to you, Tom.
Okay.